I'm Bethany.
And I'm Lauryn.
Welcome to the Healing Collective podcast, where we explore the paradox of healing at the individual and the collective level.
Join us as we invite guests to share their personal paths to freedom.
George is my friend. George is my phone friend. And we are mixing shit up right now because we went from being phone friends for a better part of 2 years. We hung out one time for a couple hours, which was great. To let's hang out for 5 days and do a bunch of shit and work with all the healers and, maybe do journeys and just go all in on trying out a whole bunch of new stuff. So he's getting a bunch of data right now. And so he's here visiting me. And it's really fun. It's so nice to have him. And I know him from being a coach on the CLG team. So similar coaching modality, but George is you're taught, before we got online, Lauryn was talking about some shit I've never heard of. And George was that's it. George knows about all the stuff. I feel like he knows so many different modalities and he did a master's in spiritual psychology. He just has a lot of rich experience with all the different stuff that we talk about on this podcast. So he's a wealth of information. He's a really good listener. He's my good friend. I'm really happy he's here.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I've jumped in to come visit.
He jumped in.
What has happened so far? So the fascia, give us an update because we had them on the podcast. And so I think you could let the listeners know from firsthand.
Yeah. Well, first I would say, thanks for the introduction. It's funny, Bethany, was it 2 years ago? So, the amazing thing is I remember talking to Bethany first time I met her 2 years ago, and she's a million miles an hour. Even when we were talking about different things, now you're an expert. We were talking about the somatic experiencing. Now you're I've seen how fast you absorb and kind of go after stuff. So it's been cool. And yeah, I've been here. I've done, what do we do? I did fascia this morning and
he went to Mia.
I had a session with Mia yesterday. So yeah, it's been I got off the plane Wednesday night and then next morning was Mia. It was amazing.
Mia was amazing.
It was an amazing session.
He's been to Lifetime Fitness.
It's another
they used awesome one of Bethany's healing modalities.
It's a nice place. So yeah, I had a good session with Mia. I had the fascia this morning. It was 3 hours.
3 hours with Mary. I was guys, I gotta go. I've got clients. We gotta go. Yeah. Mary's oh, okay. She was talking.
3 hours.
Yeah.
3 hours.
Until I broke it up. They would have been in there all day. I was guys, we gotta go now.
Yeah. It was interesting. I thought there was 4 times I thought we were done. And she's all right, get back down. But yeah.
She was working them.
It's a bunch of stuff. She gives information. She mashes you. I feel it now. I'm still, integrating it, but it was, I had heard about fascia before. I had an uncle who had a stroke, maybe over 10 years ago, something like that. So, and he's he survived it. He's extremely strong-willed and he started a foundation. And so part of his body was paralyzed for a while, and now he's still working to get kind of complete function back. But he was obsessed with fascia for a couple of years. So this was the first time I heard about it. And he said that's the thing that's so important. And there's only so many people who do this fascia stretching or fascia modality.
I know. I looked it up after our pod, and I couldn't find anything even in the Midwest.
Well, you guys are both part of my campaign to get people to move to Beverly. So the more essential.
Yeah, you've almost sold my sister.
Yeah, Jackie's let us know when the apartment opens up down in the basement. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's it's one of the people I'm lobbying to come move here. Yeah, you.
Me?
Yeah.
It's cool. It's a cool community. It's been fun. I'm only here 2 days, but.
Well, tonight he's getting everyone's coming tonight. So he'll get. He'll see what that
Who's is. Everyone? The girls and who else?
The girls, Paul and Mario, Mary, the fascia lady. She's my buddy too. So she's coming to hang out too tonight.
Oh, she's coming too.
And Mia's bringing a friend, I think, because something happened. So she's going to bring someone I don't know. So just like the regulars.
Group.
Yeah. Actually, somebody described Abby as a text to her friend that moved to Boston, and she described the group. And she said, Bethany has an amazing little community of seekers, healers, and queers. And I was like, yeah, that's it. That's what we've got here.
You should just print that out and put the healing house and like a sign.
Tagline on the website. So he's getting a full service experience, and just seeing how it feels. Because you've been by yourself a lot lately, pandemic wise and whatever, right?
Yeah. I'm in LA, so it's good to get a change too. Come out here. It's cool. LA is kind of got a lot of these options and healing and kind of all these modalities. But it's kind of cool to get out of that environment, come here. It's a different feel, but still have people who are like great at what they do and kind of on the cutting edge in these areas. So it's a different feel. And the pandemic has been, it's like a surreal experience. So as I told you, I was looking to and it's kind of spread out. Obviously, like LA is a little more spread out, like disconnected, and the pandemic's made it. Just life is just different now. So it's been cool to come here, and you've a master at creating community. So that was one thing I expected, and it's been nice. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up Washington, D.C. So born in Washington, D.C., lived there a lot, and then Silver Spring, Maryland, right in the suburbs, D.C.
So of the places that you've lived, and you could add Beverly, like which one, is there a place that feels like home to you?
Actually, that's a good question. I feel like I've lived a lot. I've lived a lot of places. I grew up in DC, lived in New York, Chicago, LA, lived in overseas for a while in Holland.
He played basketball for the Holland. What is it?
I played in Europe for the Dutch Professional League over there.
Professional Dutch basketball player.
So I've lived a lot of different places. I mean, DC for so long has been my home, and it's still, I sort of claim it, but it's changed so much. Like when I go back, it's changed so much. I still have family there. So in that way it's home, but it's not the same feel. And I've changed a lot. LA felt like home for a long time. So I don't know, it's switching. I don't know that I would say I'm sort of in a new phase of transition. So it's a good question. I don't know.
It's all on the table.
Yeah. My family, my parents are getting older. So my brother's in outside of New York and New Jersey. And my parents just moved into a home near him. So sort of my roots are kind of other family there, but it's shifting. So I don't know. That's part of the trip here is just kind of get out of LA and experience home somewhere else or get a feel.
Which is like literally my kink. I'm like, come here.
My kink.
Let me bring all my friends around. I can't cook because the kitchen still doesn't work, but like, I just love that someone might want to be like, I want to be in a home and have a homey community feel and pick me to come have that experience for a few days. That's nothing makes me happier. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. I think, I was just thinking like with the pandemic, like you were saying, I don't know, things are changing. So I think people are more focused, or at least I am on being like, because, it's a different, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, but the world's different. So you've sort of always been so focused on that, but it's just made me be more intentional around it because now I feel like I have to be. It's just, which has been good. And it's brought up a lot like to consider with that. So.
Yeah, I also had like a big transition around home. And I was saying this to Jim last night, like, it feels like I lived, the first 39 years without being at home in me. And I really mean that more than just like the way we talk about it, but like like not fully grounded in my body or something, like really not, and just like externalizing home, I guess.
Yeah.
And so now it's like been this whole deconstruction where it's almost like a forced back into home and a rebuilding. And yeah, I'm super curious what home becomes after this time. I crave it. It's a theme.
What's the theme? Home?
Yeah, home.
Yeah.
Craving it. Yeah.
Yeah. When you asked me that, that's what I thought about, because that's what I've been thinking about a lot. It's like there's where your home, where you live, like where you maybe resonate with. And then really at a core level, I think it's so important to feel at home internally. And that's been a journey for me. I see a journey for people, but just, like, can you feel secure and at home within yourself? So I think that's coming up for me, and it's coming up, partly because things are changing and transitioning and shifting. And so, it's like externally, there's a lot of change. It can be unsettling, but if you feel at home internally, then, you're grounded, and that makes it a lot smoother. And you'll find, I think once you can settle in there, it's like, one, you'll be led to where you need to be, but also it's just much easier transition.
If I was using charts and data to like talk about healing, I would say like a key performance indicator around like your health and your healing is like, do you feel at home in yourself, or are you constantly like
leaving yourself?
Yeah. I noticed that for me. Like I noticed the difference in even just being alone and by myself. Like I love community, obviously, and I love having people around, but it used to be like people have to be around or I'm not okay because I can't be by myself. And that has changed so much in the last 5 years that I'm like, am I introverted? Like I actually really like downtime more now. Like people used to say I'm 100% extroverted, and now I just feel really in touch with the part of me that likes to, I can certainly recharge with like one person around, but like the nights my kids aren't here and I work and it's just quiet in the house, and I think it's just me in the house and I don't talk to anybody, and it's like, I don't know, I take a bath or whatever and I'm just by myself, feel super nourishing now, where that was like my worst nightmare when I was younger and in my 20s to be alone. So
what changed or what brought that on?
My nervous system, I'm pretty sure. I think all of somatic experiencing.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain charge that I was, and an anxious nervousness that I was using to some extent people to help me settle, that I would like be using other people as a resource. Mm-hmm. That like a lot of that charge has gotten discharged, and a lot of the fear or anxiety that would be around isn't here.
Yeah.
So I can resource myself, like my own capacity to feel good without needing someone else to help me feel good. That feels like it changed, and it feels like it was somatic experiencing that was a big part of it. And I would say medicine work too, and the things that I've learned with medicine work.
Yeah. You did pretty fast.
That's how I do it. That's how I do it. Usually. But yes. Yeah, George gave me my first ever astrology reading, and I knew zip up.
Oh, right. That's right. I remember.
And then a year and a half later, like, I'm pretty into it. And I know a lot. So, but he is one person that I could nerd out talking about astrology for a long time because he knows a lot. And, we both think about it a lot. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I came to astrology with I think a lot of people in crisis and or having tough times, and then it just was like something that it just made sense of a lot of stuff that was going on. So yeah. It's just another modality. Yeah. I find it helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look like when you're in crisis?
What do I look like?
I think it looks like this, maybe.
I don't know.
What is your experience?
I look like in crisis. Well, I can tell you it's been like for me, some of it's been, which is probably like my process is it's often solo. I find for me, it's like withdrawing. I think I've gone through, I don't know, we've talked about this, like a lot of different transformations and, talk about death and rebirth. So I don't know, just for me in my process, I've had these periods of my life of really, death and rebirth, like from different jobs and careers and relationships. And I think everyone has their own path. It can be different. Mine has just been like that. And each one is sort of like, sometimes it's a crisis, and crisis is like for me, it's often a feeling. I probably look back. I like can look back and it makes sense in retrospect, certain decisions or paths I took. But often it starts with like this an unsettled feeling. And when I look back, I can say, oh, there's something like either calling me, I feel unaligned. I feel either like off my path, even though I don't know what that path is. So when I look back, even a number of years, it was like, I was having these thoughts and feelings that didn't make sense. I was like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel when things were going well in the external world? And so then for me, this is just my experience. If that happens, I just feel really off. Like I have to feel like I'm on a path. And if I don't, it's like searching for something. So crisis often, and I'll go withdraw, and it's just like, it's like a death and rebirth.
Well, the thought I'm having is that sounds true based on what I know about your life so far. And, there's some challenges here now, and you're doing something a little different. I think you're coming towards a little bit. Do you feel like even just your trip out here or whatever?
Yeah, I think it's
a change in the pattern almost.
But each time it's different. I feel like it's called in a different way for me now. I've had these different experiences in the past and I've integrated some, and this is just another kind of place I'm coming to. And so, I think now I handle it better. It's just try and listen more. But so this is, in some ways different. Definitely. What's that?
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, when I first, I don't know how you describe this or, experience kind of a search for more consciousness and understanding of growth and stuff. Like I look back and I didn't know people who were kind of doing this, and certainly not people who were kind of exploring it. But then also I think the unique thing is cool, like people who are, exploring consciousness and growth, but that are in doing stuff in the world, using that for to make an impact, like in the world, not going off, it's great to meditate on a mountaintop or something, but I think it's really powerful when you use that to make an impact in the world and what you're doing, whatever field that is. And I think that's been something that over time I found other people like that, and then sort of a tribe forms.
Yeah, which is like all your third house vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because the ninth house would be like go sit and meditate on a mountaintop, because it's like spirituality and it's these like peak experiences, and it's usually distance and international. And then the third house on that same axis, so the opposite of that is like daily practices, community, people you see all the time, or even if it's just people you talk to on the phone all the time. Like I know you have a bunch of phone friends that you kind of stay in good touch with that way. So it seems like you've figured out how to have a tribe, even if it's not like in a physical community that's right next to you, but you have your own tribe community that people are kind of into the same stuff as you, and you have people that you can talk to and have shared language and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
He's got a really heavy third house, like a lot of placements.
It's and it's like, the thing is, I live in LA, so it's kind of spread out and disconnected. I've had community there, but I find it's transient. So a lot of people move away. And so that's, but I've had tribe before. It's just, it's like different now. You kind of meeting different people. like I kind of have a very diverse background, right? Like I played professional sports. I worked in, a different career before. And so it's kind of like a very interesting mix. And as over time, it's just been cool to find people. Like when I was drawn to some of this stuff, it was like two different worlds. It's like I'm living in this world and then that world. And then over time, it's now finding people, it's more integrated, finding people who it's kind of like both.
Yeah.
And then I think, I've been in LA for a while. It's been a little bit spread out, and I'm looking down at what's the next phase and how to integrate it all. And
he's done with LA.
It's kind of happening.
I think he's done with LA.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's going to go, but.
Do you feel like you know what your purpose is, or like you have a core mission that drives you?
I do. I think, and it could evolve. It has evolved, but right now I think, using my skills, talents, creativity is important to me. I feel like to help awaken people in some way. So using my own personal skills and talents and creativity to continue to help awaken people. So for me, that right now is what resonates for me.
Say more about the right now part.
Well, I just think, I'm continuing to grow and evolve, and I've been stepping more and more into that. And I think that change of identity was really hard for me. That was a lot of like when you said in crisis, I think it was hard. Just, I had this identity of who I was, and then shifting into work, like coaching and healing and some of the things I explored and learned. And, I didn't have any kind of models for that. So when I started exploring that, it was just like, it was weird because I still identified and felt, there weren't other people that I knew or friends who were kind of doing that path. And so I was doing well and enjoying it. But then as I kind of explored these other modalities and kind of trying to get more in touch with what's my purpose and started stepping more into that, it was just like these two different worlds. And I was holding on to who I was. And then I probably went to the other side. And I think what I learned is you can integrate that. Like all of that's true. Like all of that's part of me, and just own it. And my purpose, I'm clear in some ways to help be of service. And I mentioned awakening. And I think you kind of can make a difference and impact kind of through your own experiences. So the things I've learned and what I've gone through, in some form, hoping help people maybe going through the same thing. Or have some of the similar experiences. And I'm still growing, I'm still learning. So I'm still, that could continue. I expect it to continue to. So, and I think before I used to try to figure out, that was like how I lived before, particularly when I was, like in sports and working in corporate world. It was like I had a plan and it would work and it would get me to certain places. But now I had to let that go and just there's much more of a listening and trying to see what comes and following or trusting kind of where I'm led. And I've found when I do that things go a lot easier and I'm led into the right places. So, but it's still a process. I'm still trying to get comfortable with that.
So when I went out to Colorado and journeyed with Lauryn and her teacher, it was all about what you're pointing to, like flow and a different type of listening and honoring resistance, not leaning into it all the time and all of that. So, but before that journey where your teacher talked to me so much about that and was helping me sort of learn about that and integrate it and pointed out when she saw it, George is the main person that I feel like I learned a little bit about that from. You're pointing to flow and a surrendered flow, I think a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And when I met George, I was still really leaning into resistance and trying things. And when they weren't working, trying harder and getting a bunch of data about how that feels and what that looks like. And I would report to him a lot. And I think I don't want to speak for you, but I think you could probably feel that in me still a lot. And so he's the first person that I would hear start to make articulations about what does it look like when a situation in life is happening where there's some resistance, to honor the resistance and like make it easier on yourself, almost to just like kind of let the universe take you where it's taking you, rather than having a bunch of big ideas about how everything should go and trying to make that happen. And then however many months later, I went and did that journey. And then I've been integrating that for over a year now. And I do think I'm being a lot different with that stuff now. I think it's still integrating, but
yeah,
you were one of the people that talked to me the most about that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, I remember when we talked about that. It's like, yeah, I think, I mean, from my own personal experience, I had to do that because, yeah, I had a lot of angst when I, like, you know, I mean, you know, I worked in business and
Finance.
I already had a collective. I played professional basketball when I got out of college. I was in Europe. Had a great time. I loved it. Left and I look back at it. Yeah, I had, even back then, I think I was just like, I had an idea of what I should be doing or where I should go and needed to do. And so I followed that path and it worked out for a while, so to speak. But then I got to the point where I was just unfulfilled, not happy. And I was doing another path that I had no role model for. I really didn't know where it would lead me. And so it was just incredibly like unsettling, a lot of fear. And so anytime I try and plan out where that's going to take me, it's just like, you can't do that. Like, so I had to be in this state of surrender because it was just like agonizing. I was just like beating myself up and like, you know, so anyways.
Yeah,
so,
Joseph,
yeah.
I mean, that's what Joseph Campbell talks about with the hero's journey. It's like, that's how you know that it's starting, because you can't see the path. I think my personal kind of bias, I guess I would say, is like, I think that we are not fully awake until we can't see. Because I think that we're just creating the past or creating some conception of reality, right? That's been like programmed in us until, and when we wake up, when we're fully alive and awake, we recognize that nothing has been created yet on our path through our individual experience that we are as God, you know? And so I don't know, that I think it's really important to be able to, and Sadhguru talks about being like a hollow bone that like life can just move through and create as. And I mean, it's very seductive, and I've always been very interested in that way of being and very committed to that way of being. And I think this year has been the most like, fuck this, you know, like you just go deeper. There's just a deeper level of unknown. There's a deeper level of what you're willing to release, you know? And I guess this is the first time that I really understand why people hold on so tightly to the known and to the, I want to say creator consciousness, but I don't think that's the right thing. But that thing of like, it feels almost like an addiction or an obsession to see how much you can envision and then make happen in reality. I think it's like overused.
Over-indexed.
Yeah. In humanities, you know, specifically.
You know what you can manifest, envision, manifest. And
I think it's a gift of consciousness. Like, you know, source, life, and force energy wants us to recognize our power to create consciously, right? And it's a way that we get to really play. But I think there's like a vibration of life that coordinates the interdependence of all things. And I think that when you create something you create a timeline around that thing you create. And then all of reality has to recalibrate, align to all the timelines that are being created. And I think it has the capacity to do that and the intelligence to coordinate that in a way that serves all that is. But I don't think it's like the most efficient for evolution. I think there's a lot more, maybe you would call it karma or residual that gets created as a result that then has to come back around and get learned. So I think when any one of us chooses to surrender to, in 12 step, it's like thy will be done. Like in 12 step, everything is about you get powerless. And so you have to surrender. And the idea of addiction in 12 step is that the human became so over-centered and the ego within that human became so out of control that it becomes unmanageable. And you use an addiction to try to like believe that you're that central to life. And so the first step is I'm powerless. I don't have control. And the second step is there is something bigger than me. And the third one is I surrender to that. And so there's just something really significant to me about this journey that we take of kind of being like really lustful with life and controlling it and designing it for ourselves and then hitting the end of ourselves and surrendering to.
Right. Well, you mentioned too, something interesting, karma, right? Like there's something around, I mean, I don't know, you can use that word, I guess, in different ways, but I do think there's something around and something happening around healing and healing like karma. And it, like my sense and what I hear and what I experience is, because I think, yeah, like you're saying, there's an opportunity to really, like, yeah, you can create, I don't know, those like the law of attraction, we talk about different ways to create and manifest. But one thing is like, you still have like, unless you work through certain karma, you're not, there's certain lessons that you're going to have to learn before you're going to bump up against something. And I think there's something happening collectively around healing that's going on and healing karma, like old karma.
Yeah.
And, I mean, on one level, yeah, it's going to help manifest things faster and move forward, but just like raising consciousness, like there's something going on around that, like that I've noticed recently and just have experienced different things and new modalities that are allowing people to heal, like do things like that hasn't probably been around. I don't know, like recent history.
As accessible. I mean, that's what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
Like, here's all the cool stuff and check all these things out and see what resonates so that maybe it can be of service to you.
Yeah.
It's an offering. It's like, it felt like privileged information to have like all of this stuff come into my life that was so helpful.
Yeah.
That I could have easily not bumped into. So that's why we get all these different people's modalities or stories or experiences or frameworks or whatever to offer to the people that listen for that purpose. Yeah. And I do think we're in like a major pop, like something is up and we just all have so much more access to this stuff than ever before. And I'm sure that there's a bias. Like I'm in my little bubble and I know I'm creating a lot of people who are into the same stuff as me to show up and be around. But the fact that my mom goes to my channeler and stuff, like I didn't think that was gonna, you know what I mean? Like there's more openness, maybe because of what you're pointing to, Lauryn, like, because it's like people are starting to feel all this pressure of like how little they can control, whether it's like social justice stuff or the pandemic or like there's financial, like inequality, like health stuff. There's so much happening that people are like maybe moving in that way of surrender. And then maybe there's a little more availability for like, when you get desperate, you're almost like, okay, universe, what do you got? And that's when you maybe try something that maybe can be a real tipping point for you.
No, it's, I mean, I think that's amazing. It's awesome because like my process has been, feels like a long one, and just trying different things and like experiencing different things. And now, I mean, partly it's technology. I mean, you can do a podcast and you can talk about all these things, right? Mm-hmm. And so I see that more and more people talking about this. I've explored all these different modalities, and it's kind of cool that you can now bring it all together and just be much more accessible to people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think there's something around a collective conscious, like it's built upon each other, like, you know, like the vibration raises, and mm-hmm. so something's happening. I agree, and mm-hmm. that's sort of been my process. I wish I had podcasts like yours to watch early on and learn.
Well, there's a book I'm reading called Healing Collective Trauma, and he talks about let me just say the author because we're on here, Tom Hubel.
Yeah, I saw some of his stuff. I saw a webinar he did. Is he basically doing like unarguables as a way to get really present almost and be with yourself?
I mean, he's definitely like non-traditional, and I'm like new into him, but it basically, what I understand, even so, he's just kind of legitimizes something that I think that we're feeling, but I think we're just ending an age. I think consciousness is always spiraling, and I think it builds up generationally. And I think that then there's kind of like a purge. And I think this is a purging time. I think we're transitioning from a time of a lot of individualism and separation to a time of interbeingness. And we're in, I call like this process of reunion with ourselves, reunion with each other. And I think it requires a lot of clearing, more so, right? I think there's just some opportunity, like you said, like even in the Bible, they talk about every 7 generations, right? Like what's available. So there just seems like there is like some real ancestral, even seeing what happens in people's medicine work, that we're just clearing and completing so many lifetimes. And, you know, even in my own journey, like when I got pregnant with Taylin, I knew there was just this commitment, this something inside me is like, I don't want to pass down things that I don't need to pass down. And then when my dad died, even at his funeral, I felt, and I said this at the funeral, like this really strong, like I'm going to complete what's not been completed. Like I actually feel like that's part of the purpose of my life, is to complete those things. And I approach, you know, the struggles or the triggers that happen as some kind of reflection of some storyline that wasn't completed over the course of like my bloodline. So I really think this is like, and to your point, why we are creating these healing collectives or these places. And I think that a lot of the opportunities that we traditionally use for healing are very archaic, you know, and that there really is going to be this like huge jump. Like when I was really struggling, I kept getting a download that I needed some kind of energy healer that wouldn't really be mainstream for like 50 years. And I was like, well, how, you know, if that's the truth, then I'm not going to find her. But I got connected with this energy healer, and I call her like a future doctor. Like I really think the way that she's healing like in the quantum field, and does he have a appointment?
Oh, really?
Told you about her.
Yeah. Wow.
So anyways, just like really, even the fascia stuff, it's like, there just feels like it's like at the edge of the evolutionary curve, you know, and the irony is it feels like a lot of the, like what I would call future healing is so much more simple and so much less complex and so much more of a recognition of how we heal each other and how simple healing can be.
When you say heal each other, like, what do you mean? Is it, just clear when you were saying heal each other, were you talking to a specific modality or just kind of like being with each other in a certain way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's more like a core principle that I believe is just like that the field is interdependent. And like, for example, when I've coached circles, it feels like that somehow is what's attracted everything that every person needs to be projected or projected back to them for their healing, and also the skills that they need. Like everything arrives in that container. And as a facilitator, there's like this like beauty or this art form, and like watching the universe kind of thread the healing of the group.
Yeah.
And I think that that's available in every relationship, in every container. And I think it requires like quite a bit of presence and embodiment. And then even the awareness that, context is playing out as content. So that you have the agency to like play with it and understand that like you can shift what's in here by what's out there. The ability to attune to other people. Like, we know even in somatics, like we know that we can support people's nervous systems to settle with our bodies, just all these things. But there's so much like bullshit that we believe around like sex, and so much fucked up shit that's happened to us around intimacy and touch. So there's like all these barriers to do some of the things that are probably the most simple and the most natural. And I imagine like in indigenous cultures was just happening intuitively, or the way that indigenous cultures like just could intuit that an herb would be healing to someone.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I was like, that's one reason I like groups, like working with groups, facilitating groups. And I was talking to a Chinese medicine doctor recently, and she kept telling me this and it was just like a great reminder, because she was like, we heal in community and we get sick in isolation. Mm-hmm. She was talking about it. Like collectively in groups, how being community, but she was even talking about the cellular level, like our cells. Right. She was actually talking about cancer, like our cells, like her work is really getting our cells to communicate more with each other and be, and if, through the energy moving, and when they don't, like this rogue cell goes off, that's where like disease happens. So it goes from a cellular level to literally like in community. And why groups can be so important, or just community so important. And what you're speaking to is like facilitating or like being in a group of community of practice, whatever those modalities or that practice is. I think it can become instinctual, and it just requires presence, attunement, like some of the basic stuff that you talk about, right? Just now, and you can use different modalities, you can use whatever the tools are, but really at the core of all of them is the same thing. It's just being attuned, being present, sharing, like being supportive, and just that like is healing. That's like the amazing thing. And I find like there's an instinctual part, like the group will take on, like, what to do after a while. And I've had experiences like that where I've learned new tools, energy work, and it's like, we've known these tools for like, they've been available in the past, and somehow we've lost them. And then you just kind of like, oh, like there's a part, like, I know this, like there's like, if you believe in past lives or whatever, like there's some part of me that has used this before. Maybe it's in the past life or whatever. And it's like kind of cool when you're like, oh, I know this is familiar.
Mm-hmm. It feels natural when you remember what to do and how to do it. Like, even what you're talking about, like through the pandemic, 3 or 4 of my friends came here pretty much every Friday, and thank fucking God, because it was just like, there was so much isolation happening. So we were kind of potted together, and we were, following a lot of agreements or whatever, and we would be here and we would just touch each other. We would just like snuggle and touch constantly. Or I might be in the kitchen, like making a meal, stressing, and Paul would just come up to me and notice and just put his hand on me and start doing Alexander. And it's like, when you're all together, it's so instinctual how to remember how to create support for each other. Like, you can feel where the energy goes, and there's always someone who's holding. And so like, it's okay to not be okay, because there's so many people who are okay. And so I think it just makes everything so much less challenging when you can remember how to regulate with each other and attune to each other.
Yeah. And it's so fucked up to me that it's like, I get it. And it's so fucked up to me that we have so much to do to remember. But I think about like, I don't even know where I heard this. I want to say maybe Jim or Diana, but people talk about like the universe likes to play hide and seek with itself. And like, I think that it really gets turned on literally by like creating all this separation and all this like forgetting just to remember again, just to forget again, just to remember again.
Peekaboo. Diana says,
yeah, peekaboo. Yeah. Like that's what it feels like. It just feels like, yeah, all these cycles are just that because, and I mean, contrast does make you appreciate things more, right? Like the contrast of knowing what it's like to not be attuned, to not be in your body, to be X, Y, and Z, and then coming into awareness of that, like you have such a deep appreciation versus if that's just was your way of being all the time. Mm-hmm. So I do think like I don't want to say this. I think that we are so far from ourselves that the experiences that we have that we call community, generally speaking, or that we call relationship, or we call even sex, I would say, are like not even scratching the surface.
Of like the level of connection that's possible, you mean, and healing that's possible?
Yeah. And like the level that like the design of our body and the design of the earth most resonates with. And so I think like when, yeah, it's almost like we get these, like these hits of community in these false forms. I don't want to say false. It's not the right word, but like here's something that I grieve a lot is how I will see people go and create like these deep experiences of community at like a retreat with people they've just met or they've known a year or at a workplace or whatever, but have like really messed up relationships with their family of origin and like their kids or their partner, and how much we like as a culture, like go out somewhere to try to curate something that, I don't know, I feel like it's supposed to come from within the constellation that you were placed. And I think that's just part of the separation. I think part of the separation right now is like, we're so traumatized in relationship. We have so much pain around our core relationships that we have to go outside of that and like heal with other people or have these visionary experiences. But I think that for collective healing to truly happen, we have to bring those back to the places that were most deeply planted. And if you think about it from a intergenerational trauma perspective, right? Like a lot of the traumas that we pass down are related to family of origin experiences and their family of origin experience and theirs and theirs and theirs. So I have kind of this sense that like, if we could really bring the healing back to that and understand the importance of that place, there would be this really important kind of like thrust or healing forward.
Do you think there are people, like you were saying, well, first I agree. I think, yeah, you could you can go off and learn those in service to come back. And there's an opportunity to heal yourself. And there are some people that I think you talked about it before, like healing generations of stuff, like ancestral patterns. And you talked about that. Do you think certain people, that's their purpose here? Specific people, there's certain people in families that's their role?
I think that, well, I would say one thing that I feel aware of, I can't say like, is that there are consciousness from the future is coming back into this time period and into bodies intentionally to try to heal as much of the collective trauma in bodies as possible, because it increases the likelihood that humanity survives. And at the place and time that they are, there is very little like organic matter that exists. And that just like we're learning collective healing through bridging across lines of difference, whether it's politics or race, or, we're actually learning a lot about interdependence within our own species. And we haven't even really done a very good job within other species on the earth. I think at some point in time, it'll be more about interspecies with other life forms. And I think where in other places in time and space, they're learning that they're interdependent with all of time. And them being of service is to be of service to other places and spaces and time in order for them to survive. And so, yeah. So I think there's like a light army of beings that are here for that purpose.
Yeah. Wow. What do you think?
I'm on board. I mean, there was a point where like, I've just experienced so much weird stuff feeling so true in the last many years. I just kind of feel like I just feel really open to anything being just as true as anything else. And like, there was some reason why I like begged Lauryn to be my learning partner, I think. And I've had like some experiences with Lauryn that, I can't explain. And I feel better all the time, and people around me feel better all the time. And I think, there's like a way I can hold ideas like that really literally and tight. And there's a way I can hold them really like loose and open. And I just feel kind of loose and open. And I love that narrative. That sounds like such an awesome, like clear, trippy purpose. And like, I'm really open to it starting to feel even more true over time. But my main pointer is like my direct experience. Like Lauryn has a lot of information about that. I haven't had those experiences, but I know I trust Lauryn a lot. And then I think when she gives me coaching and feedback and support, it's transformational. So like, I'm just kind of here for it, basically.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't believe myself around it, but I ask myself, because I want to hold all narratives lightly, because we know how story like creates reality. But when I ask myself, like, why would it be valuable for like me to have this narrative as a part of my experience? Like, it does, like in the work that I do in the world and what I'm creating right now, like I do feel like I'm downloading it from a possible future where humanity is thriving and thriving in community. And I think, I don't know, like I think that's a gift from somewhere else, a vision that, and I think sometimes we have to have access if we're creating in the present moment, and all we see is suffering or all we see is separation. Like something has to kind of open us to another possible reality, a possible future. And like that's, so yeah, I don't hold it so tightly. And I don't even, I share it on here and I share it like within some of my circles, but the intensity of it is getting so crazy for me that I'm starting to have to really ask myself, like it almost feels like I will be like betraying myself not to honor it more often than I have been.
Yeah. I mean, I would say for me, it's a narrative of, I don't know if it's true, but I can say over time, I'm having more and more experiences of, I experience it. I think people can experience it different ways. It sounds like you're having downloads and something's coming to you and speaking to you. And I've experienced more and more of this, I don't know how to describe it. I used to do a lot of this energy work where you're, I think you can access a certain space through it. It's healing, it's energy. It's learning to work with energy in the body. It's clairvoyant work. And And so I have my own personal way of experiencing some of it where I'm getting exposed to a lot of people and just situations where I'm hearing more and more of that. And I just know some of it resonates. Like it's like more and more opening up to, whether it's literal or not, there's a message in it that like I'm getting is true. And, but it's interesting just how it comes to me. I'm getting it like through certain people in my life or just, at the right time, like someone quotes something that's like, similar to some of the things that you're saying. And there's a commonality that just, for me, just feels like there's something there. And as I relate it to my life, what's most important is, I look at what's the message now? Like, how does it relate to kind of what's happening in our times? How can I be more aligned with the path that I'm on? Just trying to stay clear for, I think if you open up to it, there's like enough people, there's a collective raising of the vibration that I think at some point you just start to know, like, so this is true, this isn't, this makes sense to me, this doesn't.
Well, awareness is so diverse. Like awareness is like, if you think of awareness as this chain of everything that a consciousness has ever been or will ever be eternally, like the possibilities are just beyond anything that we conceive of. So like the stories of, and the what people have access to when they can kind of leave time and space and connect to what their consciousness has been connected to eternally. I mean, it's unlimited, it's limitless. And so I think that as we start to awaken more to who we are outside of time and space, like we're going to have more acceptance for very, very different stories and very different trajectories of experience. So I think, I was going to say that like, this is kind of my thing, like sometimes with CLG, or it's just like awakening for what? Awakening so an individual can like be wealthier than they already are and like know how to like use consciousness to navigate the game, or like awakening in service of something that is collectively supportive. Like, why are we waking people up? Do we even know why? And like my sense is there's a collective interdependent service that we're doing, and that like there's a level of kind of being a doula into that. And there's a way that we can kind of be irresponsible and give people all these opportunities to wake up. But then it even like, I really like Jim's blog that he just sent out, is like, if you're just using the tools to drive your own personality, right? Like, that's not it. That's not why we're doing this. And I just find that to be like a really important invitation, like in service of what? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like this blog too.
Everyone I've talked to loved this blog, and the whole team was like, we love this blog. Everyone was like, he writes blogs and no one says anything, but everyone was on Slack about that one.
Oh, it's a huge,
it's really important.
Yeah.
It's really what's happening. I mean, it's really what we see happening. Yeah. And to name it.
It's like anytime you have a container, I don't know, I've had this described to me where you like if you talk about religions, like things can become dogmatic and like rules. I think he was speaking to like even similar with like religions, like I've heard it described as like, if you have different containers that are holding the same liquid, each container has a different shape. That's where you hold it, but the liquid's the same. And like religions have their own different containers, like the rules, what they believe. But there's always like a spiritual underpinning for most religions, and it's pretty similar. Mm-hmm. But just you can get lost in the container. And I think even like a lot of the personal growth, like there's different, whatever you call it, commitments, rules, like that are valuable because it holds a container, but you don't want to lose sense of that container. And it can be a good practice to let go of the container, to like get back in touch with what's underneath.
Mm-hmm.
I think his post was speaking to that. It's like, how can I find a way to like speak to the same thing with different words? Because it's the word, it's the spirit that's underneath that's so important, not the words and
the dogma.
Yeah. You have to have a way to hold it and communicate it, but you can get too relied on that specific way. So that's why I liked his post. And even when you were talking about, like, I look at it, yeah, it's like, but even people who do like that to further whatever they want, they're just choosing to play a certain game. They're going to get lessons in that game that they're playing anyway. Like, it's maybe that's just for them to, you know.
Well, that's the hard part for me. And I know that I'm processing this more because I know it's an edge and I know it's like a question. I'm very oriented towards the collective. Like, that's my orientation. And, so it's like, it's like, if we're never separate from each other, then like that person's lessons are not outside of anyone else's lessons, or, you know what I mean? And not like there's a right or wrong way to do it, but there's something there for me around when we perceive it to be just our lessons. And we perceive it as not as like you're in some kind of silo and all the shit you're doing just has, you know, and everybody else, like there's something there for me because there's this dichotomy for me around holding what it is to be like eternal spiritual beings and like the reality or the acceptance of responsibility that we take on when we choose to be in a body in a human experience. I did mushrooms like a couple weeks ago, and like one of the messages was, it's just like a lot, like you get to experience all this as an individual, but this is the price you pay. And the price is all these interdependent things with other humans that sometimes I get like really annoyed, you know, that I have to deal with. But the reason I think it's important is because what I see is like, there's a way that with other humans or our relationships and people, we can get very almost like treat them like the way we treat things we consume. Like, that was a great shirt and I liked it for a while. And then I got a new shirt and I like this one better. I can't believe I ever wore that other shirt. Can you believe I wore that other shirt? Oh my God. I've grown so much that I don't wear that shirt anymore. And it's like, no, that's a human. Like, that's a person. And like, and there was some impact that you had, and was it completed with them? And what was that impact? And like, I think we can see this with the earth. We're facing it with the earth. We're like actually seeing like the fact that we just, you know, I need a lot of fruits and vegetables as fast as I can get them. Like, don't worry about the land, right? Like, now we can't say that anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, we're actually forced to be like, oh, the land matters. I have to think about the land. I have to think about where my products are coming from. Like, I think that's going to start to happen with human beings. I think it's going to get to a point where our survival is dependent on like our willingness to see that interdependence and that impact and to like face it and to, I don't know, be more a part of it. And so there's just this, like, it's really, and that piece is also very core to my purpose. So I'm not like fully, but there's just something in me that's always like, stop. Like, there are human beings that you participated in, and just seeing the way we deal with grief, the way we deal with transition. Though I think we're in a trauma response to ignoring how much like happens for us when we don't grieve and we don't allow transitions to happen in kind of a sacred healing way.
Shout out Wilderness Collective.
You say, why don't you get some context for the people listening?
Well,
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Okay. So like my little girl group, like my group of girls, that's what we're pointing to, honoring transitions with like ceremony. Like sacred ceremony and completion acts and intentions and releasing and like honoring the transitions, whether like Marika, who was on Marika, the heart tender, did one around my hysterectomy, which a lot of people are just like, okay, like I could see so many ways that you could, that's like I really had to move into being ready to take out my ability to become a mother again, and like all of the beings that wouldn't be born.
And that some huge part of your physical body that you've had for your entire life was going to be
emotional and like all of it. And the doctor was just like, yeah, you should just do it. Yeah, you should just do it. And I'm like, I had a lot of resistance to it. And I was like, thought it was so violent. And then I saw how it was supportive because my risk of cancer is so high. But like having Marika come and my close girlfriends come and like honor the experience, honor the grief, a poem poured out of me. I've never written a poem. Like there was all of this stuff that happened that made it allowed me to feel complete and go into that experience a few days later, like feeling clear and complete energetically and aligned and like fully processed. And so doing this around like as simple as someone having cancer and needing to cut all of their hair off, not glossing over the impact of that and caring for it and having it be witnessed and having people honor and reflect back to you. Like these are important transitions. And, you know, we could do them for like divorce, or we could do them for starting a new business or things we're celebrating or whatever it is. But, you know, we only honor like birth, death, and marriage. And it's like there's so many other transitions that are so nuanced that we don't honor. And
I want to add another mix to this, and it's controversial. Me and Bethany don't see eye to eye on this.
I don't even know where you're going. What is it?
Sex. Like, we're going to grieve a hysterectomy and like that leaving, but like, we're going to like have sex with like lots of people and have them be a part of our ecosystem and our body, and then just like not have sex with them anymore, or not. Like there's something to me, again, I'm in the exploration of this. When I process it, I usually get more answers. I get more clarity. I get to the next level of awareness, but it's like, there's just something in me that is so sad. Like literally I can just feel the deep grief in my body of the way that we treat sex and the way that we treat our relationship to sex and each other. And how it's such a metaphor for like how we hold, how I guess we don't hold like bodies and beings full. It's not even the body itself, it's the whole being as so sacred, and that we're so disconnected from how all of that impacts us that we can just like keep going. Yeah, I feel really sad about that. And tomorrow, this, you know, I guess I could talk about this here, but basically I've been in this relationship with someone, all these things have happened. It's been like a 7-year journey. And I feel they're like a part of this tribe, like that I feel very committed to. And when I say I feel committed, it's not logical. Like, I don't know why I feel so connected to this group of people. It's just like some kind of like self-trust. But he's really done me wrong. Like, he has really mistreated me. And like, I don't know, I have these values around community and collective accountability and staying in community and healing together. And I want to run and I want to cut him off, and I want to, and it's, you know, not to say that I won't take space or whatever, but so basically my surrender into the unknown, it was like requesting this tribe of people and saying like, I want to move through this. I want some completion. I want some transition. I want to be seen and known around my experience. And I don't really know how to do that. And that's the part that's really edgy for me, is like, I have all these really strong values. And even I can, to your part about remembering, like if I'm doing a group or I'm facilitating a transition, I can access a lot of kind of like knowing about this like space creating that I feel. But like for myself and walking through that myself, it's like a big, big step of faith. But there's something about like asking for it and stepping into it that's saying to myself, like my human self, I can feel my human self be like, I need more. I need something that to really complete this, or I can't, or I'm going to take it with me, or it's going to impact, or it's going to create something karmic that I don't want to create.
Has that always been true for you?
What specifically?
How you felt around, yeah, I mean, it seems like there's it's, you're pointing to something that you're very passionate about and like it's important to you. Have you always felt that way about this? Like, has it changed for you as you've grown? Like,
it's like a both and. So like, for example, I used to teach 5th grade on the west side of Chicago, and we would do circles all the time, and we would honor things that happened in the classroom. And it was always very intuitive to me that we shouldn't just skip over the experiences that were people having. And then on the other side of the coin, like the 12-step program that I worked with, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. So I was really destructive with my body around sex for a long time. And then I stopped having sex for a good amount of time, and then have been in this relationship. So it's like, there's ways that I've basically been on both sides. Like, I've been on the side of being reckless with my relationships and reckless with my body, and facing the consequences of that, and doing amends with people and hearing and feeling what that was like for them. And then I have these other spaces where I've really kind of like intuitively stood for it. But I would say that I've done a lot of healing with my family, my son's father, but this is the first time I'm really stepping into, like, I think I want to really learn about community and like and tribe, and like what's possible there at the deepest level of connection with the earth. And I think it's a very new journey, and it's excruciating. It's to some degree because of how the edges that it brings me to around my own programming, and self-preservation.
You said that you guys disagree. Was it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more like my experience around sex is more like what Lauryn said when she was like, there's just an intuitive, natural way around like touch, or like maybe how Indigenous peoples would just be like it doesn't stand out to me as this thing that's like this sacred,
yeah.
How? Like, I think it can be playful. I think it can be innocent. I think it can be short term. I think it can be long term. I think it can be deep. I think it can be light. And those have been more of my experiences around it. And I haven't done what Lauryn's done of going around and asking people about my specific, like the impact of that on them. I don't have that piece. And I also take her feedback of like how is it true that maybe it should be more special? Maybe I should, I think it's beautiful and powerful. And I think it's a place of, maybe the place in my life I have the most flow and like natural instinct and stuff. And I do think that I've gotten feedback that those experiences are important and do have generally a positive impact on the people that I'm having them with. But I'm really, I'm thinking a lot about what Lauryn's saying, and
I'm thinking a lot about Bethany, and I'm feeling like it's probably an edge for me to be more playful or more open to those types of experiences. What I'm getting caught up in is, even when I think through it, and it's not like I'm having like all these opportunities. So let me be clear about that. But it's like this guy asked me on a date randomly the other day, which doesn't actually happen to me very much. And it's like when I went through like where I am at emotionally, truly available or not, and why I was doing it. And like when I played it all out, I'm like, this isn't really worth it for either of us. That's the way that I thought about it. It's like I'm going to use you. I know to a certain extent, I'm going to use you to feel better, because I just want to kind of feel better right now. Like, you may or may not be into that. You might like me. You might be interested in me. Like, it just, all these different things. Like, I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it would be different if I felt like a really strong connection to someone and I felt like this is somebody
perfect. What if you can feel better? What if that's great for him?
What if you don't?
What if you don't know what's going to happen in the future and you're doing the thing and you're out in the future trying to control for stuff?
I mean, I totally believe that that's possible. And that's like a piece of it. I do think in this moment, like I'm a no to being that vulnerable with anybody. So it wasn't, it's like, and I can go to a place of seeing how it might feel good for like a day, but ultimately I'm a no. So I just know, I know it's like an edge. I know it's scary.
It's just so clear how difficult it is to disentangle our history of our life in this body and how much that impacts what we're available for in any given moment. And I totally honor that we're all getting data and learning stuff and applying those learnings. Like,
right.
Yeah, of course. But like, when we talk about like you and like white men and your experience with them, and then like you've met a bunch of the men in my life that have been figures for me and how different those energies are. So we've just had radically different experiences around this. So it makes sense.
I want to say something about that really quick though. I agree. The point of what you're making, I agree. But I have one, because you brought this up a couple of times, like the white men that you've introduced me to, I have a little bit different experience, and I still don't experience them as available. I just experience them as nicer, more like a little bit less egotistical, like overtly egotistical, but not anymore like available.
What about around safety?
It feels like, if I'm really honest, it feels fake. Like it feels like that they know how to make you think they're safe, and that when you get close to them, it's like, again, this is all story. I'm willing to question all of it, but I'm also very intuitive, and I can feel people energetically in a way that like most people can't. Like, and so I'm constantly navigating. I mean, I gaslight myself more than anybody. Mm-hmm. So I just have to process this out loud to try to like get some type of clarity. But I guess what I think about when you talk about like the path, I do think that in my bloodline, like, and I know this as a fact, at least 7 generations back, like women have not been well treated by men.
Yeah.
They haven't been honored. I'm getting emotional about that. And like, I mean, Bethany knows this, like I can actually be more playful in sex with women. Like that is a place that actually like that sex thing makes a little more sense to me. But I do think like part of the healing or like completion for me is like, what is it like to be really honored? And so I think, yeah, it feels like my innocence like also really needs that. And I think, so to your point, like, I think that like, that's, part of my individualized journey. And I think all of our journey has something that it offers back as service. And I think like what I hope is that I get to experience, like, I'm embarrassed that I'm crying, like a sacred sexual experience, and that like I can like report back about that and like the difference between that and the other types of experiences that I've had,
I want to read a poem.
Okay.
I think I've read this to you before. This is a Marika poem. Some of you, it's called Mother Wisdom Speaks by Christine Lore Weber. Some of you I will hollow out. I will make you a cave. I will carve you so deep the stars will shine in your darkness. You will be a bowl. You will be the cup in the rock collecting rain. I will hollow you with knives. I will not do this to make you clean. I will not do this to make you pure. You are clean already. You are pure already. I will do this because the world needs the hollowness of you. I will do this for the space that you will be. I will do this because you must be large, a passage. People will find their way through you, a bowl. People will eat from you, and their hunger will not weaken them to death. A cup to catch the sacred rain. My daughter, do not cry. Do not be afraid. Nothing you need will be lost. I am shaping you. I am making you ready. Light will flow in your hollowing. You will be filled with light. Your bones will shine. The round, open center of you will be radiant. I will call you brilliant one. I will call you daughter who is wise. I will call you transformed.
That's perfect. Is that from Dub?
It's from Marika.
But the book Dub, I think it's from Dub.
I don't know. I just know that at my hysterectomy ceremony, Marika wrote that out and put it in a frame, and it hangs in my room. And I read it all the time.
When you were talking about that, when you were sharing, I appreciate, like, I believe everyone's where they're at. They're at different places and different times in their life, and just people are different. But I like the idea of how if we just heal part of ourselves, like we're just if you did that, you're raising the consciousness collectively. Like you're adding to that, even if we just heal one thing within ourselves. And this is such a passionate, deep thing for you, and like so much that you can offer, just healing that within yourself. And then, yeah, there are many others who, you could help as well, who may have be in the same place or have some of the same experiences, and how powerful that is alone, that work you're doing. And it makes a huge difference. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, the podcast, we have a few people that like listen to everyone, and they're definitely like on a journey with me around this, because I've been talking about this since episode 1 in some form. So I'm curious, but I'm moving very slowly in my curiosity. I'm not in a rush. And I think it's a lot like to the point we talked about being home in ourselves. Like I experienced sexual abuse like at the age of 3 and 4. So it wasn't like it's like a luxury, to like be that at home.
Yeah.
And I think like now that I'm finding home, it's like, wow, this is a really special place.
Can you feel home right now?
Yeah, I do.
What are the sensations? Where do you feel it?
I feel it in my pussy. Feel it in my heart. I feel like right here. But there's like this really tender part, and then it goes up and it clamps my throat shut.
So let all the home feelings be there as much as they want to be there, and then just focus on the clam that wants to shut, and see if you can let that happen. Make both okay, and let your pussy and your chest and all of that a sense of home. Let it talk to the clam. Like, let it just be there. Let the clam shut. Let it do whatever it wants to do. Let's see what it feels like to let them be there together.
I did that. It feels like it like released a little. Yeah, there's like it's like innocence, something, and then protect. It's kind of the sensation.
Mm-hmm. That makes so much sense, right? So smart, like based on your story and your experience.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm getting this chance to like I guess what I make up is like when you're young and maybe your innocence is protected, like over time you slowly kind of learn like what's safe and what's not, and it feels like this really young part of me is just now like learning that, and really now like, oh, you're safe or you're not safe, but like come a little closer, go a little back.
Well, it makes so much sense on a nervous system perspective for you to go really slowly with that. Very, very slowly get different pieces of information and to allow yourself to integrate that all the way.
And I just feel so much grief. Like, I don't know if grief is even the right word, but it's like, it's like this combination of rage, grief, like the part of me that like, I don't know, I feel so deeply. It's like there's not even words for the feeling for like giving Haman my innocence, so much of it, and like how reckless and like destructive, and like how I wasn't connected to that at the time it was happening, probably because it felt so normal, or you know what I mean, or there's just ways that it like matched my socialization and what had been modeled for me. And, there's all these things. And the more I get in touch with that, like, I'm like someone who was so close and I trusted so much, like that's like the hardest thing right now that I'm moving through is that.
Have you been able to, work with that part of yourself, that forgive that part of yourself? There's this passion, there's this strength, you're standing for something. And I hear, and it makes sense why that's so important. But then there's also this part of you that was innocence. And it sounds like that it was taken away at a young age, and that there's some continuing of that pattern. But like we're just learning and stepping into the compassion for that part, forgiveness, understanding.
Yeah, when I check in now, like I do feel like compassion for myself. Like if to know me in this relationship, like this person could like do no wrong. Like they like were like we're through a filter or a lens of like they're the greatest. So I think removing that filter and like really giving myself permission and like allowing myself to be angry and hurt and like see the ways that I was hurt is actually it's like what I avoided for so long. And it's part of my conditioning. It's part of that karmic healing. Like my mom put my dad in that kind of place. And like to this day, like we've all had like really traumatic experiences with my dad that she would say didn't happen, So I think like there's something about the facing of it, and the seeing it more honestly and getting out of denial that seems important right now, while still like holding myself. And I can see that my nervous system has healed so much because of like how it feels to like hold so many things at one time.
And like the rage and all the grief makes so much sense because you didn't have a competent protector.
Yeah.
There was something missing in that experience.
And that goes to like this journey of like bringing the masculine online in me, right? Like if everything is like a projection of my inner consciousness, like that the version of masculine energy that was online in me was just a reflection of, of what I saw. And now I'm kind of redesigning like what is my protector hasn't been online in me, I guess is what I want to say.
Yeah, it's an invitation.
Yeah.
And I hear your protector online. I hear it's too vulnerable. I'm going to go slow. I'm curious, but I'm going to be really, really cautious and thoughtful. That sounds like a competent protector coming online and integrating in. So
I was thinking, like, I remember one time Jim was like, I'm going to like butcher what he said, but it was basically like, I think you need to really think of yourself as in a castle, and you need to build a moat around your castle and like not put the drawbridge down until blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's like that's such an intellectual thing. Like I am just now having some kind of experiential understanding of what that would be to like hold myself that way. And I'm thinking a lot about women who have been more in my position and like how we support the healing of their nervous systems to get some felt sense of protection so they could actually know the difference, because without that contrast, it does, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's so interesting now because I'm holding myself so differently, and there's so few things that I would put up with now or that I have in the past. And it's like, wow, like I just had no idea that was even possible.
I didn't know your story. And so when you were sharing around, like you guys having a different perspective on this, but then hearing more around that, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, and that is a protector too. Like you're standing for something so strong. It's harnessing that also for you, that part of you that's still, when you come back into that, like you didn't have a protector, didn't have someone to, say no or stop or whatever for that innocence.
people just showed up.
Time for the party. Well, George, how do you feel that you said yes to this? What do you think?
I've been saying yes to things since I got here, so I don't know what to think about it. I hope I'm half coherent. I've been on a different time zone, getting tons of healing, so it's cool hanging out with you guys. So I appreciate you guys asking me to be on it. It's good to see you again, Lauryn.
Yeah, you too.
We had a thought it would be George part 1, and we're going to do George part 2.
After the Pluto-Sun conjunction, maybe, or Deering. Aaron could put to be continued at the bottom of this podcast.
Put that on the bottom as we fade to black.
Hey everybody, if you've got any feedback for us, we welcome it, or ideas about future guests, email us at healingcollectivepod@gmail.com. Our website is thehealingcollectivepodcast.com. We are at Healing Podcast on Twitter, and we are at Healing Collective Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to Monda Creative, who edits all of our podcasts, and Two Tall Women Productions, who produce. Thank you.